To many people, Buddhism is thought of as a religion, philosophy, healing, or therapy. However, in truth, it is none of these things. The whole concept of Buddhism is to teach people how to take responsibility for their actions. The Buddhist tradition exists to help others experience the same awakening and liberation and to learn from the Buddha's teachings in life. Today, over 250 centuries later, we have people that are still able to embrace and preach this message wholeheartedly. His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and the late Dr. B.R. Ambedkar are renowned Buddhists that were able to do so. From the late and great Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who stood up and fought for the rights of untouchables during a time of great discrimination and status inequality in India, to His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, who devoted his life to peace and Buddhism and helped the non-violent struggle of the liberation of Tibet. Buddhism and Buddhists have helped people with rights and responsibilities for years upon years. Let us begin from the very beginning of these years with the birth of a prince. Born around 560 BCE on the border of Nepal and India in the city of Kapilavastu was a Kshatriya prince named Siddhartha Gautama, who would be later known as Buddha, the Enlightened One. His father is said to have been the king or leader of the Shakya clan or group inheriting that land, and his mother is said to have died shortly after his birth. In any case, the king and kingdom were overjoyed for the birth of their firstborn heir to the land. In the king's old age, he had finally had his wishes fulfilled, hence the name Siddhartha, meaning fulfillment. Astronomers were called from the mountains to predict the child's future. They informed the king that the child had the potential to be a Chakravarti, a great ruler, or an enlightened being. The king was determined not to let his only son run off to the mountains to become a monk. He devised a plan to give Siddhartha the most luxurious comforts and to deprive him of the sad knowledge of death, sickness, and old age, which in other words can be summed up as reality. He created an artificial environment so he would not know the wrong in the world. The king had denied Siddhartha Gautama of the rights to know about the real world for his own selfish reasons. Living the most opulent life for 29 years, still hidden from the truth, his coronation drew closer. While walking down the streets one day, he unexpectedly met a man who was sick. During the conversation with this man, and as they continued to walk, the king's worst fears came true. Siddhartha had found out the truth and was in shock from these foreign ideas of sickness, old age, and death. That very night, he realized how all along he was never truly satisfied with his life, and decided to abandon his responsibilities as prince and seek the truth and rights he had been denied his whole life. Not only did he leave his responsibilities as prince and ruler that night, but he also left his responsibilities as loyal husband to his wife and caring father to his newborn son. Everything was left behind to seek the truth that had been hidden from him. Siddhartha Gautama had the responsibility to rule the kingdom, be a devoting husband and caring father. However, he also had the right to learn the realities of life. After leaving his palace and kingdom, Siddhartha Gautama went in search for the truth and to seek wisdom and enlightenment. He traveled far and near in hopes for some answers to his ever-blossoming curiosity. He searched long and hard for over 6 years. On the path to learning, he thought about all that he had left behind, his old life that was so defined and well-planned. After learning all that he could from many teachers, and even at one point devoting himself to extreme asceticism in hopes that he could realize the truth, he was not getting much farther. One night, after settling by the river Naranjana, later to be known as Bodh Gaya, Siddhartha began to meditate under a peepal tree, vowing not to move until he had found his answer. In the early hours of morning, when the first star was barely visible, he was Siddhartha Gautama no more. He was now Buddha, the Enlightened One. He had awoken to realize the truth. As morning drew on, he began to understand and enjoy this bliss. However, he feared that he would never be able to communicate such ideas and liberation to others. After rejoicing at his newfound enlightenment, he realized that this new awakening ruled out this very selfishness, and he was determined to share his findings. The Buddha was determined that it was his responsibility as the enlightened one to help others too achieve this freedom and awakening. The Buddha went on to explain to his fellow travelers his new findings, and slowly they began to become his early followers. Buddhism does not ask to give up freedom and individuality, but instead encourages us to stand up proudly and take responsibility for our own vision of what it means to be human. Steps like the Eightfold Path and 5 precepts explain the simple basics that humans should follow. Examples include not intoxicating the body and living with mindfulness. Buddha was strongly against the caste system and offered an alternative to the unreasonable religious beliefs. By admitting members of lower castes to his religious path, the Buddha took concrete steps to destroy the ancient ideas of inequality. Birth does not make one a priest or an outcast. Behavior makes one either a priest or an outcast, said the Buddha. He criticized the foundation of the caste system and welcomed all people into his Sangha, or community. His teachings give every human being the right to achieve enlightenment and nirvana, a state of perfect peace. Everyone is given the right to reach success, regardless of caste or status. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, born to an untouchable family, is a prime example of a Buddhist who, despite his caste, went on to become one of the most educated men in India. Buddha also gave importance to women, preaching that there was no superior or inferior gender. At first, women were not allowed to follow his religious path, but once a disciple pointed out all the work his aunt, who was his mother-like figure, had put in raising him and his hard-working wife had done, he understood that they too were capable of reaching enlightenment. Buddha was able to grant women the rights to education and religion during a time when women were held in low esteem in a family. He gave women the right to be just as great as men. However, he told that with this equal status comes the equal responsibility as men have. In Buddhist society, women carried out the same amount of duties as men. Years after the Buddha's death, Buddhism still flourished, and missionaries and his devoted followers were to thank for spreading the religion throughout Asia. One other major contributor was Asoka, the third emperor of the Mauryan dynasty. After seeing the sufferings of war inflicted upon his military and civilian subjects, he decided to renounce war forever. Instead, he turned to Buddhism and launched a movement and resolve to live according to, so he could bring moral, spiritual, and social renewal throughout his empire. Asoka did many things as a devoted Buddhist. He took responsibility to spread the religion within the empire by building stupas, great temples, and monasteries. He even put Buddha's teachings in a stone in a public location, much like Habarami's code in Sumer. He also felt the responsibility to help his subjects to focus on the Buddhist and peaceful teachings, to patch the warring past, and show them that they had the right to again live in peace and harmony. The Dalai Lama once said, every human being wants happiness, and the Buddha, he acts like a teacher. You are your own master. Future, everything, depends on your own shoulders. Buddha's responsibility is just to show the path, that's all. When they have obtained all the earth, girdled by the sea, kings wish to conquer the other side of the great ocean. Mankind is never satisfied with the pleasures as the ocean with the waters that fall into it, preached the Buddha. Buddha's purpose was to supply the human race with the knowledge of how to achieve the pursuit of happiness. Through the Buddha's resolve to seek enlightenment, he was able to help others understand their basic rights to achieve enlightenment and the responsibilities of how and what it means individually to be a human.